Seriously, Apple's iPad Pro is good. It is really, really good. I love it, but it could be better. Sponsored by CuriosityStream with Nebula. I'm focusing on hardware for this video, but I'll be doing an iPadOS/software version really, really soon. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and bell so you don't miss it. HDR, high dynamic range, is something I really, really, really want on the iPad Pro. We've had it on television sets for a while, and we've had it on the iPhone since the iPhone 10. And I think there's two reasons why we've been waiting going on 4 years. And the first is ProMotion, because ProMotion, which is what Apple calls the dynamic refresh rate, that they can ramp up to 120 hertz for things like ultra smooth, silky scrolling and video games, but then ramp down to 48 hertz for 24 frame per second movies, the way, yes, nature and Hollywood intended. That wasn't possible on OLED displays until very, very recently, until we got LTPO OLED displays, which are rumored to be coming to the iPhone 13 this fall, also OLED, because OLED is a terrific display technology, but a highly problematic one that requires a wide range of mitigations to make it even reproachingly useful. Apple's still not happy enough with it, with things like how uniform the brightness is across the entire display for something at tablet size. So the rumor is they're going to be going with mini LED instead, and mini LED isn't quite as good as OLED, at least as far as I understand it, because the pixels aren't self-illuminating. They're like traditional LCD pixels. They require a backlight, but they use local dimming zones to try to contain that light so it doesn't spill everywhere and just give you those murkier, grayer shadow areas like traditional LCD does. But it avoids almost all of the other mitigations, everything like off-axis color shifts and burn-in and pulse width modulation at the lower frequencies, which some people really, really hate. So my hope is when we get to the next generation iPad Pro, we are fully in with mini LED, and I can finally watch just all of that content as close as possible to the way it's meant to be. The original Apple Pencil had this incredibly awkward way of charging up if you needed to in a pinch. Lifesaver, total lifesaver, but so awkward. So I all caps love that we can just take the Apple Pencil 2 and snap it with that oh so satisfying snap right on the long side of the iPad Pro, and it'll just magnetically, inductively start charging. But the way that it's positioned means that it still just gets knocked off so always. And I get that you can't just make the magnet much stronger, because then it'll be much harder for some people to take it off. Some of Microsoft's Surface products put it underneath the tablet portion in the keyboard where it's covered up and can't fall out. And I think some of Samsung's put it on the back where there's a deeper groove that helps shield it against shearing forces, things hitting up against it. And here I don't have a clear-cut solution for what I want. So please feel free to co-sign any and all of these in the comments below. I don't think having the FaceTime camera in vertical orientation on an iPad has ever made sense, especially since 2015 when Apple started introducing the iPad Pro, because those keyboards put it clearly, definitively in a landscape orientation, fully on horizontal, and then the camera is off to the side, and whenever you use it, you're just giving people wicked side eye, and I never want to do that unless it is absolutely intentional. So I am really hoping that Apple can figure out a way to move the camera to where it's always been on MacBooks and where it just feels much more natural, at least for me, on an iPad, and that is in landscape mode. And I get that it got much more complicated in 2018 when they announced the new version, the new design of the iPad, because now you have the new magnetic inductive charging system for the Apple Pencil, and there is only so much room in the casing to go around. I think it makes just all the kind of sense in the world that does to have it in landscape orientation so that we can finally have conversations, especially throughout 2020 and now 2021, which is proving to be like the Wonder Woman 1984 of sequels, just the way they are meant to be. Full on, full face, no side eye, unless it's intentional. One of the things that really truly confused me about the 2020 iPad Pro update was that Apple added the LIDAR sensor, but didn't integrate it into the rear-facing camera system at all. It was so incredibly awkward that when you hit the portrait mode button on the camera app, it would flip around and use the true depth camera system to give you a portrait mode selfie, which is not intuitive, not what you want. It was so jarring that the only thing I could think of was that Apple's team was working so hard on the iPhone 12 camera system that it just wasn't ready yet, and that when we got to iOS 14 being released along with the new phones, Apple would backport that to the iPad Pro, but it doesn't seem to have done anything at all. I really hope that in the next version of the iPad Pro, Apple brings it up to speed with at least the iPhone 12. One of the other things that seems to be missing, not in relation to iPhones, but in relation to Macs, is just Thunderbolt 3 capabilities on the iPad. Apple went to USB-C on the iPad Pro in 2017 with the new redesign, but now, since late last year, when the M1 Macs were introduced, Apple actually built 2 Thunderbolt controllers right onto the board, 2 really high performance Thunderbolt controllers. And this is another one of those things that I would all caps love to see come to the iPad. Even if it's just the iPad Pro to maintain the differentiation of the Pro lineup, the ability for it to get the data speeds that come with Thunderbolt 3, but also the interoperability with the greater range of peripherals, especially things like high-speed SSD drives. And while I'm just rattling off my wish list and spending all of Apple's money, I'd go so far as to say 2 USB-C/Thunderbolt 3 ports, one on each side, would be fantastic. It would also further increase that differentiation between the iPad Pro and the iPad Air, but it would also just make the iPad so much more convenient. And I know that there's a charge-only port on the Magic Keyboard, but it's a charge-only port and it's on the Magic Keyboard. And as we're approaching doing more professional things with our iPads, for example, if I want to hook this camera in at the same time that I'm charging and at the same time as maybe I've got an Ethernet adapter in so I can do really good quality live streaming right from my iPad Pro, I want to be able to do that by just plugging in. Now, I've got something else on my list. Yes, one more thing, but it's kind of hardware, kind of software, and kind of tangential. So rather than risk just confusing the algorithm by doing it here on YouTube, I'm going to put it into the Nebula version, because that's just where I post all of my videos, 100% ad-free, sponsor-free, often with extra exclusive bonus content, things like full-length collabs, interviews, Q&As, and my very first Nebula Original, where some of my absolute favorite YouTubers talk about how the iPhone has impacted their lives. And you can get a Nebula subscription absolutely for free when you sign up to CuriosityStream using the link in the description, or go to curiositystream.com/ReneRitchie. That means for less than $15 a year, you'll get access to their thousands of documentaries and series, like Sigourney Weaver's Dream the Future, where she explores the cities, homes, medicine, transportation, entertainment, and sports in the year 2050 and more, as well as all the ad-free and often extended videos on Nebula from TechAltar, Jordan Harrod, Ali Abdaal, Thomas Frank, Real Engineering, Real Science, and so many more. And right now, CuriosityStream is 26% off with Nebula bundled in for free. So click on the link in the description or go to curiositystream.com/ReneRitchie and then go watch my original. For more, much more on the next generation iPad Pro, hit the playlist above where I break down all the reports, all the reported new features. Just hit that playlist and I'll see you in the next video.